Hello, Marco Polo here with another Valhalla Movement podcast. And today, on a Quebecois ici. In our podcast, we've got Benoit Deschamps, who is a local Quebecer who is also building Earthships on his land. He's built a greenhouse so far, and he's at the point where he's going to be building his own home, which is very, very, very interesting. Super inspiring. I saw the pictures of his greenhouse. I haven't personally visited it myself yet. But Benoit is also the author of an incredible ebook. Like, I don't even know how many pages long it is, but a couple hundred, if anything, talking about everything that you would need to know when you're planning to build your Earthship. Like, what are some of the zoning laws you should be looking at? Are you allowed to use volunteers? What kind of glass? Everything from the statistics of sun, and he uses Montreal as the baseline for kind of most of his examples and all of his examples, just because that's kind of the area that we're in. He's not exactly in Montreal, and neither are we, but we're at that pretty much that same latitude that the numbers are very very similar in terms of reference. And Benoit has, I mean, he's got a full, from what I know, I don't know where he works or what you do, but I know you have a full-time job, right?
Yes.
And see, first of all, thank you for being here. Let's even start there. And thank you for being so awesome. Thank you for being just another person who's taking on this kind of project. But I have to ask you, like, why Earthships? Where did you hear about Earthships? What inspired you to do this?
I was searching for a kind of home that was really sustainable. And seeing all the climate change we will be facing soon, very soon, I was searching for this kind of home and stumbled on Earthships on the internet. Then I searched, is there any Earthships in Quebec? So I searched and I found the Escargot at Chelsea. Mm-hmm. We're giving a kind of 1 week course on sustainable technologies and buildings. Mm-hmm. So I've gone there. I did 1 week and a half, and it really sparked something. Mm-hmm. Came back, I was changed, and I wanted to build this stick home, even if it meant to adapt it for the Quebec code and regulations. Even if you have to customize it a little bit, I think it's worth it, really.
Yeah.
We
agree.
I know, we agree on this. So in my ebook, I did an energy modeling to see if the Earthship here would perform as they say in Taos. The climate here is not, and temperature are not the same as in Taos. So I was very curious, and the simulation did good. It shows that the Earthship stays stable almost all year. In fact, the greenhouse goes almost to zero, but it doesn't get enough cold to frost. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could speak to that, to my experience and such. I went there today. So today is an April day. It's a warmer day. And when I went inside, maybe it's about, I don't know, 8 degrees outside Celsius. And when I went inside the Earthship greenhouse, in our case, it was probably like 25 in there. Mm-hmm. Now, even when we went, at one point I got back in March, I was kind of traveling. I got back in March. It was like minus 19, 20 outside Celsius again. And we went inside there, and you were able to, like, you could just taken off your shirt and been okay. It definitely didn't maintain that temperature all year round, but and all kind of, definitely came closer to the frost line for sure. But in our case, it looks like there was never any freezing. There's no evidence of such. Every time we went, there was always like, yes, there was a little bit of water accumulation that kind of built up because we're still working on the drainage and stuff. But there was never freezing. It was always above zero. So technically, we can grow tomatoes all year round in Quebec. That's what it seems like anyway. And
yeah,
so,
I saw that you plan to add an aquaponic system in your greenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
It's very good because a big mass of water is a big thermal mass too. So when you have your your pools. It would help further stabilize your greenhouse.
And so you built a greenhouse, not the same greenhouse as us. You designed it yourself?
Yeah, it's more like a kind of shed, like Earthship style shed.
Yeah.
That's not meant to be a greenhouse. It's really meant to experiment like a type of prototype for our house. It's based on the same way of building it as a house. And we found and we experimented some things like bottle walls, exterior bottle walls. Try to insulate them with a few things. We've tried some things, and we wanted to see if the site was properly drained, if there's gonna be water in there in spring. So we have our information now, and we need to raise up the house a little bit more because the soil, the ground in the shed is a bit moist. If I put some bedrock on there and then put concrete or rammed earth floor, it'll be good. I need to do some finishing in the interior, like cobbing, but till now it's good. Yeah.
And so I'm assuming that having built this now, obviously you're talking about building your own house, and I know you designed kind of your own house with the help of a local architect, and I'm assuming you're impressed. Like, obviously, if you've built it and you kind of saw it and now you see it in action, it seems like, okay, now this is something that, you know, obviously can work here. You've done the tests now. You wrote the ebook. You literally, you know, when somebody says you write a book about it, you totally did. I'm incredibly impressed with everything in the book. By the way, for the people who want to look at the book, there's a link in the description. But yeah, so I'm assuming you're fully impressed. Is there things that you would have done differently?
Really, that's really important. The land and where you plan to build is really important. Like, you are on clay, I'm on clay too, and drainage is quite an issue. You have to be careful on where you plan to build. That's the number one. After that come all the regulation and codes to obtain your permit to build. Check and double check all requirements with your town. Make sure that all that is good. And then when you build a house, you have other regulations to comply, like the RBQ and CCQ. You must check that as well. A very good few things are detailed in my ebook by that.
Yeah.
But, what I've done differently? You can always do some things differently, but that comes to a choice, I think. You can really bury all the Earthship like Michael Reynolds do. You can put a small wall at the back of the tire wall and get the roof a little higher than the ground. You can have a flat roof, a slightly pitched roof. There are all kinds of things you can do. And at this time, my choices are made. I'm so deep into the stuff I need to buy and the construction permit, all that. I can change a few things like insulating the slab or not. The major components are set. So I'm working. Yeah, I've worked with an architect. You mentioned it. With an architect, but I did some plans on the computer to really good estimate of all the lumber I've got. I need all this stuff. So my plans are pretty complete. There's some things I need to check out with an engineer yet, but I already have my building permit.
Wow!
Because I couldn't build a shed if I haven't had my building permit. So
that's great. Like, you know, for the people who've been following Valhalla, and even for the people who haven't, we had we had such trouble getting this damn building permit because went to the city originally and I said, hey, we're on agricultural land. We want to build an agricultural greenhouse building. And it's this size. Do we need a permit? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, great. So we did our crowdfunding campaign. We raised money and did all this stuff. And I go and they're like, yeah, just, bring us the plans. And it's a little permit. I think it costs $50 or whatever it was. And then you have the permit to be able to go there and build it. And I was like, fantastic, like, great. And then so we bring them plans, and they're like, what's this? And I'm like, well, we're using tires. It's an ecological building, blah, 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 blah. And then they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, what? What's going on? And they started freaking out, basically, okay? And they required us to they were like, well, you have to get a structural engineer. You have to make sure that it doesn't pollute the groundwaters, so la nappe phréatique in French. They wanted to make sure the structural components and that the tires wouldn't burn and that they're safe and then they're like, all this could be, if you guys get a stamp of an engineer, a structural engineer, or an architect, then we can approve it. And that was a big hurdle for us because we were like, shit, okay, well, who are we going to get to do this? And they're like, it has to be a Quebec engineer as well. It couldn't just be Michael Reynolds, which we had already kind of established a connection with. And so we were like, man, okay, how hard can it be to find an engineer? There's hundreds of these kind of buildings that exist. There's got to be someone out there that's willing to do it. 3 months later, and we're still looking, and we're like nobody wants to do it, or people want to do it, but they're like, oh, it's going to be like $7,000. And I was like, $7,000 is a 10 by 20 inside greenhouse. Like, like, no way, that's crazy. And we ended up finding, finally, an architect firm called Leff in Montreal, if you're a Quebecer. They are fantastic. They brought us in connection with Thibault Lefort, who is a kind of a more of a freelance engineer, and he kind of stamped our plans. And now, technically, these plans are available throughout Quebec. Like, you can take the plans that we've kind of gotten stamped, get them stamped for yourself. You pay a little fee to Thibault and to them. And now what's amazing is that we've kind of created the culture that allows this to be built anywhere. But in most municipalities, some of these other greenhouses kind of went up elsewhere in Quebec, I think in Bromont and some other areas. And they didn't need any permits. So, you definitely best piece of advice I could tell anybody. If you're going to think about building something like this, as Benoit said, go see your city regulations, read the ebook. There's tons of information that's going to save you hours of time and like really, really, really help out the process because it's not as evident and easy as you would hope it to be.
No, and it's starting here in Quebec. We're just getting started, but it will get bigger. And the more and more people ask for it and try to build one, and the more that people talk about it, we'll get there and have more and more houses being built.
It's amazing. It's really incredible how many people talk about it already. This is a concept that a year and a half ago we basically didn't know. I knew nothing about Earthships. I had never even heard of them. And now a year and a half kind of later, and we've built a greenhouse, and we're talking about building kind of like this barn type building, almost like a transformation style center, and surrounding it with permaculture and all these other practices that kind of go hand in hand with it. But it's amazing how many people have heard of Earthships now through us, but through efforts like yours, through efforts like Solution Era and Francis Gendron and all these conferences that he's been doing. I mean, like, I have to say, bravo. Like, Quebec is so we're progressive in that way. Like, we're very much on the edge of making this a big thing, specifically in an area that is, a lot of people would be like, yeah, right, passive solar and all that kind of stuff. There's no way it's going to work here with our minus 40-degree weather. And I don't know. I think it's proven it wrong.
Passive solar works alone with traditional housing.
Yeah.
With Earthship, we're using passive geothermal.
Yeah.
In combination with the passive solar, that's good. It's even better.
I mean, people don't have to understand that this is not like, this is real. This is really real. Like, I stepped into my first Earthship when I went down to Vermont. I went and visited the Earthship there. And then I participated and kind of filmed the whole build down in Argentina recently in January. And, like, these things are real structures. They're really warm inside. They really work. They're really, really, really incredible. They're, you know, people are like, well, why do you, you know, like, why do you think that this is going to work versus a, you know, straw bale or cob house or whatever? And I'm like, it's not that I don't think that straw bale and these things aren't going to work. I just think that this is a really great alternative idea that uses, as you said, it's not just passive solar, but it's passive geothermal. And geothermal provides that stability of temperature that I think the Canadian climate needs.
Yeah.
Straw bale houses can for sure work. I mean, yeah, they're like, let's say what, 1.5 feet thick or whatever, 2 feet thick if you have nice and big straw bales. Walls. But you're still dealing with a lot of challenges. I mean, there still lets a lot of kind of air flow through that. And whereas this is really acting like that battery bank that Michael Reynolds talks about all the time and that Francis and everyone talks about. There's a whole level of innovation that came out of this idea of building out of tires and bottles and cans. And I'm glad to see that you fell upon it. I'm glad to see that you're inspired to do it. So, given that, somebody wants to, so now somebody looks for land, they find a zone that's good. Now what? What do you think the next step is? Like, why, you know, what do you think somebody should build first? What should people start doing if they found the right area and the city's kind of open to it? What do you suggest to people?
You can take some time and experiment with basic techniques. Go at the Valhalla site. Go see some Earthships other people have built. Experiment by yourself. Make cob at your home, in your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Begin in a small aquaponic system. Begin to build some small things to get yourself familiar with the bigger ones that comes next.
Mm-hmm.
Take time to evaluate your site, how the elements, snow, rain flows on your land. Then really pick carefully the place where your Earthship's going to be. That's really, really important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Water, groundwater, rain, it's the first enemy of the Earthship. You need to stay away out of water. The
Mm-hmm.
house is made of earth. Earth and water don't mix well.
Specifically on clay soil.
Yeah.
Oh my God, is that a challenge?
So take your time, experiment on a few things, simple things, then start building something small, like a greenhouse, like a shed. Go on some other work site and experiment, touch, do it. Do it now. Don't wait. Do it. There's other people who's doing it now, and there's always some place where you can learn. So go for it. Even if you don't build next year and you want an Earthship, you want an Earthship style house, you can still do something right now if you can't build right now. It can take 5 years for your project to come alive.
Mm-hmm. But you could start today. You're totally right.
Yeah.
There's no reason that's, you know, I tell that to people all the time. It's like, if you're waiting today, you're going to be waiting tomorrow too. You're not, like, don't tell me, oh, when I finish school or when I do this. It's like, no, start now. Start small. Like you said, build a little aquaponic system, or try pounding a tire, or try different mixtures of cob and see which ones stick better, and read more about it, and check out an ebook, or check out, you know, we're doing, you know, with Francis and Kurt, they're doing the videos and another version of an ebook with the kind of the specifics of our plans that we did for our version. Check them out. You know, not one is better than the other. I would buy all of them. I would be a part of all of them. I would look and dive deep into all of them. I would visit an Earthship. You know, figure out if this is really for you too. Like, not, you know, everyone's like, oh, Earthships are so beautiful. Yes, they are. I agree. But you have to consider some different facts. You might have to consider that you're going to have to use less water. You're going to have to consider your electricity usage and what you want in your house. Not that it necessarily always is limited, but you have to, you know, you can always add more solar panels. But the question is, do you want to? What's the cost benefit of it? Like, do you really need that big expensive hot tub? Or can you maybe do without it? Or maybe can you find an alternative to it? people have to go out there and experiment and feel and look and play and there's, and you know, as Benoit said again, there's projects out there. You know, we have people come down. We're going to do Saturday workshops where we teach people. We're not building an Earthship this year. We're going to be building a welcome desk and some other, you know, fruit stand style desk place. We are going to be setting up a solar shed and some panels. You guys can check that out in the description on Green Seed, which we're funding now. But you know, we're playing around. It's not like we knew anything about building this greenhouse. Not like Francis knew anything. I mean, yeah, he did the academy, and now I've visited, and we've all learned at this point. But we knew nothing about it a short time ago, and today you would kind of potentially consider us some of the experts on it. And it's only because we tried. It's only because we went out there and did something about it.
Yeah. I'm quite at the example too, because we have begun our planning our project even before Francis Gendron came and gave his tour,
his conference, yeah.
Back. So I've met some people who doesn't have a shed of building real building experience, and they've built their house in Ontario. There's a lot of Earthship style in Ontario. And, we can really get inspired by them, by their designs, and how we can adapt it to Quebec. And don't forget that if you want a high-end and marvelous Earthship like Biotecture does, you'll end up paying. That's pretty expensive. That's not in the reach of everybody, but you can do it with less.
That's well said. It's true. Like, you know, people say like, oh, well, how much does an Earthship cost? And I'm like, well, how much work are you putting into it? What materials are you using? How many solar panels do you want? How many rooms are you making it? Like, I don't have one answer. It's not like, oh, it's $5,000. No, it's not. It's there's so many things that make it complex. Like, I've heard some of the cheapest Earthships that they made, some simple survival models, have been like 15,000, 16,000. And then I've also heard of like Earthships that were like $500,000 or $1 million. You know what I mean? Like, there's people who've built monstrous Earthships, and there's people who've built little simple survivals, and they're all different degrees of cost and how much was done by them. And you know, if you're in an area where you do need permits, clearly it's going to cost you a little bit more. If you're in an area with like a clay-like soil, like Benoit and Valhalla is, then you know, we were talking a little bit before the call about baking platforms, doing proper drainage. So in our case, we're going to do a little bit of what is called remblai in French, just thrown away earth, or earth that is kind of excavated out of people's houses and backyards and to make parks and whatever. And we use some of that, and then we're going to probably put a layer of rock and a layer of sand and mix that a little bit, and then try and level it out. So the more work you have to do like that, the more machine hours you have, the more trucks of sand, like in Benoit's case, we have to bring. It all adds to the cost. It all changes. Every site is different. Every project is different. Every finishing is different. I mean, do you want all tile in your bathroom, or are you okay with cement floors? The list goes on and on. But that's what's kind of cool about them, is that even though there are principles that are the fundamentals of Earthships, right? Like the north side being buried, the geothermalness of that, the use of tires and bottles and cans, these kind of things, south-facing windows, rainwater collection. These kind of things are just principles, really. Yep. Because you can apply this to any building. You could build it to whatever level of comfort you want. You can have that beautiful tile that you've dreamed of forever, and marble counters. Like, you can be very minimalist and do it with all recycled woods and all kinds of recycled glass panel, you know, patio doors or whatever it is. So, you know, Benoit, you bring up a very good point. So I have to ask you, and I don't even know the answer to this question. What are you guys doing? Are you guys buying a lot of materials? Have you guys been scavenging for you know, used materials? What's your game plan?
Here in Trois-Rivières, we have a lot of something called pyrrhotite. It's in the concrete, and it damages the concrete foundations of the house. Yeah.
So he's talking about pyrite, just so you know.
Yeah. And these foundations need to be replaced. So we scavenge a great deal of insulation and lumber, and even rebar.
Really?
Bar, and you can even take that the concrete rocks that the extract from the foundations, and you can use it like for drainage or anything else that's not structural in your house. We've recycled the brick veneer that on the front face of houses. They need to go down, and all that beautiful bricks are being trashed. So we try to get them as most as possible. That's heavy. We need to get it transport to the site, and that's what costs the most. But so you can salvage a really great deal of material, but there's some basic costs when you build a house that you can't escape, like septic, permits, all that kind of stuff that you can't go around. So there's a basic cost for a house, a Earthship house.
Are you guys going to be drilling a well as well, or are you going to go off the rainwater?
We had the chance of having electricity just in the back of our house, so we'll have an underground pipe bringing electricity into the house. We plan to install solar panels and the wind turbine later on, but to minimize the starting costs, we're hooking on the grid for now, and we have water supply too. So
great.
Use water supply, but in our greenhouse, like Valhalla will do, we'll have an aquaponics system. So I don't want to use the water supply for our aquaponics because of pollutants, chlorine, all that.
All that fluoride in the water.
Yeah, I don't want that. So we're going to harvest rainwater, but it'll be for our aquaponics systems and for an emergency if the case is. So all is thought in the case of emergency. We'll have on-grid, but we'll have a few solar panels and battery in case of emergency. We'll have a wood stove that will later on be converted to a rocket stove. Water supply.
I was going to totally ask you about that rocket stove idea.
Oh yes, the rocket stoves are really good. I don't see why someone doesn't want one. Really.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a heated bench basically in your house, and you can put some nice pillows on it. You can make it like a nice cool area.
And it fits great with the Earthship. It fits really good.
Yeah, it's a total design feature that I think is a must here in Quebec. I think that's what also really makes it feasible. You know, in terms of like, okay, yeah, fine, the greenhouse was below, above freezing, but the greenhouse only has one layer of glass. In the Earthship, you would have kind of the greenhouse area and then another layer of glass, and then, or you can go plastic too, and then you have the room, so it's supposed to be warmer in the back. But if you put a rocket stove in there, man, you can heat the whole place for sure. There's no doubt about it. In Canada, luckily, we do have a lot of forest. We have a lot of trees that are already down, a lot of dry wood that you can collect sustainably.
You can even reuse the lumber they throw up in the trash bin. There's so much traditional house construction, and they waste so much lumber. Like this winter, we've heated our house here with only trashed lumber from construction sites.
Yeah, like even if you're getting like the petits bouts, the little ends of they sawed off a little a 6-inch piece, or they sawed off 2 inches, and they were like, or 2 feet or whatever, and they didn't need it. Rocket
stove too, because they're long, they're linear, and they're small. Exactly the kind of wood you need to fire in a rocket stove.
Exactly. I mean, the rocket stove is such an interesting perspective. And an interesting topic. We wrote an article called, what is it called? Germ wrote it. Anyway, there's an article on our website about those things too, just how you can make them, how you can consider using them, how they can work for you. But so you're building this house, you're going to do the rocket stove, you've designed it yourself with the architect, you're going to raise it up because you're on clay soil. The next step is who's building it? Like, are you hiring a contractor? Are you doing this yourself? there's a question of like, you mentioned RBQ earlier. Maybe touch a little bit about like what's your strategy? If somebody listening to this, can they come and volunteer? Can they come and help? Talk a little bit about that.
We'll have a volunteers weekend for the tire work mainly,
Mm-hmm.
but all the other things, it's under the sway of the CCQ. So I have some contractors doing the traditional parts of the house. I have a general contractor.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be doing the work like 70% of it by myself.
Wow.
I have a 6-7 month window to build this. I hope that by fall this year all the shell will be completed, so I can begin to work on the exterior finish by fall, and doing the cobbing before winter, and let it dry all winter.
Mm-hmm.
I've tested it. We have radon,
Mm-hmm.
The radioactive gas. We have radon in our soil, and I was planning to use the clay from our soil to mix with sand and straw to do
Mm-hmm.
but there's radon in it, so I need to let it off gas all winter.
Wow.
Before moving in.
Yeah.
That's the thing you should check too. If you're using your soil from your land and in the house for cobbing or other things, you'll be in contact with the air. You need to test for radon, because you don't smell it, you don't see it, but that's the second major cause of lung cancer. Be careful with that.
Yeah, that's very good advice. I didn't even think about that, but in our case, luckily, we are going to do what's called we're bringing in an agronome, so he's going to do a little bit of the drainage planning and the soil testing of everything that we have. So the remblai that we're putting in, we have to get kind of looked at by an agronome, and then we're going to at the same time tell him to look at some of the clay and stuff that we have and different samples of the land. So luckily, we are going to look into it because of the city's requirements. It's agricultural land, and so we can't put earth on top of earth sometimes, and that's a little frustrating, to say the least.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even talk. I have nothing against the city. I'm happy that they actually let us do it. To be honest, they could have been way worse about it, and I think they could have done more to stop us. I think it's more actually some of our neighbors that think that we're hippies or that we're scary people, and that we're there to make the area ugly or something, or I don't know, and do drum circles or whatever. That's not the case. Like we're really trying to do something legit here. We're really trying to make it beautiful, and we're trying to be scientific about it too. You've taken that to a whole other level. I don't even understand how you're doing it all on your own. Like to me, that's the most impressive part. Is like I'm working with a group of people. Sometimes they're distracting, and sometimes they help out. But I'm very impressed with the knowledge that you've brought into the ebook. I'm very impressed with everything that you've just kind of like learned in such an amazingly efficient way. Like it seems like you've really got it all down, and the fact that you're going to build most of it yourself, and that you'll have volunteers for the tire work and stuff. Again, that's super interesting. What do you do for a living?
I'm a technician in telecommunication, and I also have a formation in instrumentation automation. But otherwise than that, I'm like a kind of do-it-yourself guy. So
and you work, like I said earlier, you work full time, and you're just finding the way, and you have a family.
And I have 2 young girls and a woman. And
see, proof that it's possible. Proof that if you
do it, you can do it too. You don't have any excuses.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, no, I was about to say.
All my evenings, when I get back from work, supper time, bedtime, work. Work on the Earthship, work on plants, work on everything.
Ebook, that, how much the sand is going to cost, how much this is going to cost, where should I get the pipes, where are you going to get the wood, where are you going to get the insulation.
How much wood do you need? When?
Yeah, it's people, oh man, I have so much respect for people who do any kind of construction now. Like, you know, you used to think, like, when I was younger or whatever, I would be like, construction people, that's like, you know, it's a blue-collar job. It can't be that hard. And then you really think about it, and, like, making your walls straight and everything perfect, and making things drain properly and making them stand and be durable and all the electricity to work. And,
yeah,
man, I'm fully impressed. Like, I have such a respect for architects, engineers, construction workers, general contractors, like everything. All of these people, plumbers and electricians, every one of those people have such incredible skills that to me is incredibly interesting. You know what else is really interesting? I would love to hear your thoughts on kind of more radical alternative energies. I'm clearly you've heard of Tesla. And Tesla towers and these kind of earth batteries and all these things. What do you think about that? Like today or yesterday I was talking about some of these kind of stuff with some people. And they're like, hey, how are you going to power your Earthship? Are you going to try some Tesla towers or something? And I was like, one day.
There's really some things that have been discovered a long time ago, but they've been or
hidden, suppressed,
forgotten. So we're just rediscovering them, and I think that some pioneers like Tesla have very good understanding of what the electric forces and like lightning or the energy, like the free energy that's all in our atmosphere. There's a way to do it. We just don't know it yet. And
some people do. It's just that they keep getting killed.
So I'm not doing anything like this to avoid being killed.
Yeah, yeah. You have a family to worry about. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's a tough topic. I mean, it's, you know, people have different opinions on it, whether it's possible or not. It's definitely possible. I'll tell you that much, guys. I've seen some things with my own eyes and some YouTube videos and stuff. Now, I understand YouTube videos could be very deceiving, but trust me, it's possible. What about some of the you know, like people? One of the biggest criticisms of Earthships, for example, is the amount of concrete that they use. Every time Michael Reynolds makes a building, he has to do it fast. And so he uses concrete because he can't wait for the adobe to dry, and you can't do cob everything if you're going to build a building fast and if people are paying for it.
Yeah.
What are you guys going to be doing? You're doing cob walls, right? You were saying that earlier. And what are you going to do for your floors?
We're going to use concrete for our floors, only for our floors. There's some bit of concrete too on the top of the tile walls, but other than that, we don't use the half tire concrete block. We do the half tire in the center of the wall. So on the end of each wall, there's always a column of full tires, and then there's a half tire if required. But we don't need as much concrete. We don't need to wait to do it for it to be cured. I know there's some techniques that you can do and still proceed, like put rocks in there, or I know that at the escargot site at Chelsea they use cob, so they mix cob and they put rocks into the half tire space. They fill it with cob. That works, but for a house, maybe you need to put up the standards a little higher. I know Michael Reynolds use a lot of concrete, like you said. He must do it quick, because when his team gets like, if I've tried to do business with Earthship Architecture. I asked about the plans, how much it costs to bring the team here, and it costs money. They're not cheap.
What did they say? I want to know.
That's like you must pay for the airplane ticket. You must feed and shelter them. How long? Like if it's 2 weeks long, that raises the bill pretty fast.
Yeah.
we're developing here a nice community of Earthships and people who begin really to understand how this works, how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we'll be soon, very soon, we'll have our own Earthship army team to do the work.
It is for sure. There's a lot of Quebecers getting some experience. I mean, we had a tire party and cob days and all that stuff, and there was a lot of people showing up. And every time they show up, they learn, and now they're teaching their friends and their friends, and it's happening. There's a serious kind of movement happening. We didn't call it Valhalla movement or the Earthship kind of movement is growing. It's a thing. Yeah, I mean, but again, to talk about that criticism, he has to do it quickly, and he has to deal with people's budgets, and he has to deal with the fact that they can't pay for him to stay for 6 weeks or a couple of months, or you know what I mean? They have to deal with some of the restrictions that are happening to make some of these things be a part of it. And there's ways that you could save too, right? Like the way they do Voltic Global models. I think you're doing a straight roof, right?
Yeah.
So you guys are doing like a straight sloped roof or whatever?
Yeah, like 1 inch in foot pitch.
Oh, okay, yeah, great. I mean, there's so many different ways that you could figure out how to do it differently. You could build some aspects out of wood, or you can use some trees that are chopped down or whatever and use those as columns. You can, like you said, when you're putting the half tires, so what he means by that is at the ends, some of the tires overlap, okay? And every once in a while, to put the next layer of tire, you kind of have to fill up some gaps. And here and there, some of the tires are different sizes, so there's little gaps that form, and we generally fill those with concrete, or at least Michael Reynolds does. But Michael Reynolds and other people, they do put garbage. They put rocks, they put garbage, they put old bricks, they put whatever doesn't need to be anywhere and it just has no real purpose and that can fit in there. It will save the amount of concrete that you're going to use because it's taking up that volume and that mass. And as long as you're using something that's kind of stable enough and that won't decompose in the middle of your wall, you'll probably be pretty good to go for many, 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 many years. What do you think is the biggest criticism other than the concrete? What is like? Is there something you're worried about?
I'm not worried, but I always think about something. When you build an Earthship, like the real thing, I've seen it from some places who've built it, like Freeville, New York, or Vermont. Mm-hmm. All the doors and all the major components made of wood for the greenhouse and the windows in between the greenhouse and the living space, all these are pre-made. Mm-hmm. And they ship from Taos. Mm-hmm. That's pretty far to ship materials. I think we can do it here locally and do some help business. Check out for ebenisterie, where they cut the wood and they work with it. Check near you. That's a more environmental friendly way of doing it, and you'll be encouragé. Vous allez encourager l'économie locale.
You're going to encourage the local economy.
Yeah. So that's better, I think. But you can do it with the help of Taos and pre-made pieces. But that's the major thing, I think. Otherwise than that, Earthships works. Maybe they need to be adapted to Quebec, because we get here a very lot of rainfall amount.
A lot of humidity.
Mm-hmm. The Earthship works. It's been proven time and time again. But here, it needs very careful planning too. And if you're on clayey soil, Earthships they need to drain. So that's maybe not a good idea. We don't use Earthships in our design because of that.
So what are you guys using for ventilation in your case? Like how are you dealing with the humidity and the ventilation?
Yeah, here in Quebec we need, it's mandatory by code to have an air exchanger. So we'll have an air exchanger installed. And for passive ventilation, we'll have windows on the north side. So instead of being burned all the way to the roof, will have a small wall of about 3-5 feet, just on the north wall, and we'll put like 18 inches high windows, and
and just open those up from time to time and let it air.
Yeah,
And I'm assuming you might install, because you're hooking up to the grid specifically, you can just install a dehumidifier and help remove some of that humidity. Use that distilled water for whatever, give it to your plants or to your aquaponic system or something.
And we plan to install hydronic heating, like radiant, chauffage radiant.
Oh yeah, radiant floors.
Yeah.
Oh wow. And are you doing like a geothermal radiant floor style?
No, I've checked about this, and that's pretty expensive, and use big machines, and that uses a lot of electricity.
Yeah.
So, no, we're not using that.
So what are you guys doing? You're doing like the black panel glycol system, or what are you guys thinking?
Water heating?
Yeah. Well, water heating, and then for the floors, like how are you gonna make the floors radiant?
We have a classic installation with water tank with heating element that works with electricity, but I've put some personal input into that, and we'll have copper coil that will be used in the rocket stove. So I can heat all my floor with just firing up the rocket stove and activating a pump to circulate water. If I have the comfort of having electricity, so I'm gonna use it. But if it goes blackout, something, I can still heat all my house with only my rocket stove.
That's genius. So you're saying that with your rocket stove, you're gonna build it up, right? And you're gonna put the piping that wraps inside of it, and then the piping itself, you're running water through the pipes. If you turn it on with a pump, the pump goes on, the water goes through the pipes, goes around the fire, basically the rocket stove, then into the ground, and then back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah, the copper pipe is in the thermal mass, not too near of the rocket, and too near of the fire.
Yeah, like further.
It's too high.
Yeah.
The copper is only in the bench. We often see a bench.
Okay, so not in the tower, but in the bench.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it warms the water really good. It's interesting for our energy conservation. And
but you need a lot more piping. Like you have to pay for all that copper piping to go into the ground.
Yeah.
So definitely a little bit more expense and more like an extra step, right? Like in Earthships, they kind of build it and then they dig out the ground, they level it, and then they kind of put some of these wood frames and then they pour concrete and cement and whatever into it. And they do that simple version. You could do the exact same thing, but just before you pour, you're just going to lay out all the pipes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and across your entire house?
All the living space. And I'm struggling right now to do I use pipes into the greenhouse? Because in our energy conservation modeling, we've clearly seen that if we heat only the greenhouse a little bit higher, like 21 degrees Celsius, it greatly stabilizes the air temperature into the living space. Just take into comparison when you go to the market, centre commercial.
Yeah.
When you pass the first set of doors and you're like in
between the two doors.
Yeah, that's really hot. Then you get inside and the temperature is comfortable. They are doing this for this reason specifically. So here you need to heat the greenhouse a little bit, stabilize its temperature, and then living space will be more stable too. If you don't heat the greenhouse, heat will gonna leach out from the greenhouse constantly. So I'm playing.
But what were you thinking of putting in terms of heating sources in the greenhouse? If you don't do that.
Yeah, I think I'll put a pipe in there, but maybe not hook it. We can simply use the sun energy from the greenhouse to heat up water and just circulate it through the greenhouse floor. This could be very simple. This be very costly, depend on your system. So here in Quebec, another big issue is, do I insulate under the slab? If you're using a radiant system, by code you need to insulate under.
Really?
Yeah.
And like a standard insulation, you can't put like a, it's not where you're gonna put your straw and your newspapers or whatever.
If you want to be conform to the code, you need an IR10
Okay.
insulation value. So that's 2 inch of insulation of.
Yeah, like that pink foam type.
Yeah,
Mm.
you need 2 inches of that. Well, another interesting thing that in the code you can't have more than 30% of windows compared by your walls.
Yeah.
Your house walls.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, in the Earthship, that's a problem because all the south is windows and doors, and all the 3 other sides are just foundation walls. They're in contact with the earth.
And it's important to point out why they have that law. The reason they have that law is for energy conservation.
Yeah, for standard traditional housing.
For traditional housing, because clearly more windows means more air leaks and more, less stable temperature, aka more hydro use in our case. So, more electricity use. So that rule basically should not apply to an Earthship, because an Earthship is all about that conservation.
Yeah.
And why would we have to kind of stick to that 30% rule? But yeah, anyway, sorry to continue to cut you off, but continue on that.
You can comply with this specifically. So by code, it says that if you can comply with anything in the code, like insulation values or windows, rough openings to the outside, like the 30% I was talking about, you need to prove that your house is better or even equal to the reference model in terms of energy conservation. So let's say for Montreal, like a house needs about 12,000 kilowatt hours of heating per year. Our Earthship here in the simulation, we have about 7,000, 8,000 kilowatt hours heat needs. So even if we don't comply 100% with code,
you can still prove it with the science.
Yeah, but you must do an energy simulation.
Really?
Yeah. The RBQ told me that they will not come to see if I really comply 100% by code, but if for some way or another they come check, I need to supply
that energy simulation.
Yeah.
Who did you speak? I mean, you could say this off air after. I'd love to know who you spoke to at the RBQ, because if they've heard your project, I don't have to explain it to somebody again. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to be like, "What do you want to build?" It's these things called Earthships, blah blah blah.
They're a big group, and there's several divisions into the RBQ, like any other business. I've talked to someone I know from our house here, because we're undergo some major renovations. So I was in touch with him already.
Okay, wow, lucky.
I had a contact. I can say I can give you his name right now, because I know that's not his line of business, like to answer all calls. Yeah. But you can ask questions on the website of the RBQ. You can call there, but I can supply the name, but you'll have to trust me on that. I've checked.
Oh no, I trust you. Trust me, dude. I've seen your ebook. I fully trust you. You're miles ahead of where we were too in terms of understanding all of this kind of stuff. So, it's amazing how they have all these little laws that can really create problems, for the Earthship style building. And I mean, the other thing is to consider. It's like, okay, fine, the whole south side is window, but every other wall is basically not window. So it's only about 25% kind of thing of your house is realistically window, but it's only because it's the question of what you see from the outside and blah blah blah. Anyway, that's so they want an energy simulation. Oh my god, I guess so.
If you compare with the straw bales houses, it's been like 10 or 15 years, and they've been approved by the RBQ about just a few years ago. If we take that same time frame, tire house maybe will be approved in 10 or maybe more years. So
depends how many we build here, I guess.
Yeah, for now that's municipal jurisdiction. So that's when the fall of your town. That's them who's gonna decide if they give you a permit to build or not. But you have some things you must comply, like gas installation. If you use natural gas, you need it to be installed by a professional with an RBQ license. The same for the electrical system.
The full electrical system has to be done by somebody with an RBQ. Yeah.
If you hook up particularly, but even if you use
even the septic tank, I'm assuming you have to get a professional to come in and install that and blah blah blah, size it and all that stuff.
I don't know if I could do the septic system, but I know that j'étais obligé de faire avec un installateur septique pour l'étude de sol, for the soil.
So you were obliged to use somebody, a septic expert, to be able to do your kind of system.
Building permit.
Yeah. Yeah, I fully envision the same thing. We're definitely going to have to dig in a septic and put a drainage field and all that kind of stuff, the conventional method. But maybe that will change one day. You know, we can't fault them. They are letting us do it. They're letting you do it anyway. We're not there yet, but I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that they did it. I'm super happy that you made this ebook, because it's going to save me a lot of time and a lot of energy trying to figure this all out. Because one of the things that I had was like, you know, we want to bring Michael Reynolds, partially because it's going to help us finance our ability to do it. We want to do an academy, and you know, we're aiming for 2015, and you know, Michael Reynolds is. I can't say anything, but it's good. Yeah, I mean, so far so good. We're bringing Michael Reynolds back in June to do a conference here. We're going to sit down with the architects that we have for our project and kind of make them mingle and figure things out. We're trying to get Michael Reynolds to be an architect here in Quebec. Unfortunately, he has to pass a French exam, which he would fail miserably. So there are things that you can actually bring him in as a temporary license. And that's kind of what we're looking to do. But, you know, there's so many factors and things, and your ebook covers tons of them, specifically for somebody in Quebec. Man, this is and Montreal area in terms of latitude. You've got every piece of information from the amount of sunlight that's going to hit your panels, what angles you should have them at, different types of. You talk about everything.
Almost.
Oh yeah, well, almost. Yeah, I think once you build maybe you have an upgraded version or an extended version once you build your house.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I wanted to thank you because you were coming up on an hour. I really wanted to thank you for doing that. That ebook, again, the link is in the description. It's also available in French. C'est aussi disponible en français. Je sais bien que le monde qui ont écouté ce podcast ont dit ou se demande pourquoi on n'a pas parlé en français. Bon, mettons que à Valhalla, notre audience et la majorité est en anglais. Puis je sais déjà que Benoit a tellement fait une bonne job à vous donner cette information déjà, plus Francis, plus Kurt, plus tout le monde. Bon, the information is there in French. Maybe we'll do another French podcast one day. But yeah, so it's available in French and English. We will have the Earthship plans and stuff that we've done, the ebooks that we've done with the how-to videos, which really are going to add the next layer of understanding, that show you how to pound a tire, that show you how to do all these things. These are going to be coming out in May. So if you're watching this in May, they're possibly already out. I think there's a bright future for Earthships here, and I think there's people like you who lead the way, who are true superheroes and who kind of paved the path and showed everyone the possibilities and answered all the questions, and people like us too who try it, and you know, we're the ones who are going to make it happen. You know, us and everyone out there doing it, and we, you know, I'm sure I can say this for you. We're very happy about all the support, the love that we get online. We're so happy with all the people who are willing to come out and do cob parties, or tire pounding parties, and to help bring us materials or their old tires or whatever it is. Like, so much love and help. If they want to get more information, they want to talk to you, what's the best way?
I have a Facebook page, Maison de Pneus Mauricie, and I have a blog too, where you can get in touch. Maison de Pneus Mauricie, our blog. Just type in Maison de Pneus Mauricie in Google, and you'll find us.
Beautiful. I'll also put that link in the description below. So thank you everyone for listening, and thank you Benoit encore. And I can't wait to talk to you soon, and I hope to come and visit your Earthship when you're building it. Yeah. All right. Have a good one, guys.
Yeah.